Then recording, Doctor. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on how to create innovative organizations. So let's wait for a couple of minutes for the other participants to join, and then we will get started. All right, yeah, I think it'll take a couple of minutes for everybody to get on board, but let's just get started. We are going to be here for the next 1.5 hours talking about how to build innovative organizations. So what are the kind of practical tools and what are some kind of techniques we can use? And also how our understanding of what are innovative organizations and what does it actually mean, how that has evolved, especially in the past couple of years. And of course, now with the pandemic, there is a lot of new means to become innovative. So my name is Petra Turkama. I'm from Abu Dhabi University. I'm the Director of Innovation there. Behind me here, you can see our Innovation Center. So this is a practice-built place where we teach innovation, we practice, we have our Entrepreneurs Club and incubation program for our students. So there's a lot of evidence that also the space and innovative surroundings make organization more innovative. So this is our attempt to trigger that in our faculty and students. And so far it has been working very well. The center is about 3 years old and it's in very, very frequent use. A couple of, let's say, housekeeping rules. So if anybody has anything to say, you can put your comments in the chat. We also have the Q&A as usual in the Zoom calls. And today we will use this tool called Mentimeter. So I'm going to share my screen right now and I will introduce you to our tool of the day. So a Mentimeter is this interactive tool done by Microsoft, whereby we can try to trigger more a collaboration, especially if we have big groups, like easily we can have 50 students, or in an organization, if you have big meetings. This is quite a nice tool to get people talking. So how this works, I will be asking your opinions and your votes on various things here, and you can access and give your inputs through these two means. Either you can go on your device, your phone or your computer on www.menti.com and enter this code we can see down there. Alternately, you can take this QR code and use this to access this Mentimeter. You will see this code and you can ask me to share it with you also later if you don't get it quite right now. But let me see if we have something in the, if we can get this one going. So either try to scan the QR code or go to menti.com and enter the code 506792. All right, let's make a little practice then. So how do we use this tool? So I'm asking you a question. You should see this on your Menti. How are you today? So let's try to get a couple of answers in and see if we get this tool going. The results come in the form of a cloud. We call this word cloud. Now we have one participant to answer, as you can see. Excited, very happy, very good. Good to hear that. It's a Valentine's Day and you're choosing to be here. So we really appreciate your time. Ready? Very happy, excited, very good. Yeah, I think hopefully there is a more upbeat feeling now for the February It is the Innovation Month here in the UAE as well, and a lot of webinars and different happenings going on. But yeah, let's hope to see a bit more discussion later, but this is how you use it. And please see on top of the screen, menti.com. So anytime you can join on later if you didn't catch it from the beginning. Very good. All right, so let's move on a little bit. So what are we talking about here today? So we understand the makings of innovative organization. We all hear about a couple of organizations like Samsung, Apple, maybe Emirates Airlines, ADNOC, that are very innovative. So they're always coming up with new ideas. They're able to serve their customers better. They come up with new gadgets, and they find new business models and new ways of collaborating. And I have to say that what makes them innovative? What is really the magic wand that makes these organizations as innovative they are? So let's talk a little bit about these characteristics and makings of innovative organizations. Then let's talk a little bit about design thinking process and how to adapt innovation into daily operations. I'm also talking about innovation audit. So in order to know what we have to improve and where to go, we have to first know where we are today. So this is the first step, to assess how innovative your organization is now, then create your vision where you want to be, and then to start taking strategies and actions to gradually get there. So these are the three parts that we have here today. Characteristics, creating innovative organization, and innovation in practice. So why is innovation so important? We talk about three global shifts that are really changing the way organizations live today. And first of all is digitalization. And this is of course now amplified with the COVID-19 and us working online. A lot of organizations still have the management working from home, especially in global scale, a bit more than in the UAE. So 2.5 billion people are online every day. We seem to own, in average, 2.5 phones per person here in the UAE. I sometimes ask my students, how many times did you look into your device today? So how many times did you glance on your phone in a day? I said, it's impossible to say. It is just so many ways. So the way we interact, the way we work, the way we check our emails, the way we divide our free time and our work life, it's really getting blended with the digital technologies. 60% of firms expect business transformation through cloud and other technologies, artificial intelligence, or the wearables, or different kinds of remote technologies. Also, we talk about the future of jobs, that we have new job categories and some of the existing jobs will go extinct. So with these, we have to really be proactive rather than reactive as organizations. We talk a lot about data management, the big data doubling every 18 months. So the amount of data in internet, a lot of it can be noise. It's not important, it's not business critical, but it's there and you have to understand it. We have to know how to analyze it and how to exploit it for the benefit of the organization. And then this, of course, is machines taking over our job categories. So these kind of dramatic changes in our operating environment are the key reasons why we need to change. This winter, for the past 6 weeks, I've been teaching an MBA program on strategic and dynamic capabilities. And it is really related to our discussion today. And we talk about what kind of resources and capabilities companies need to have in order to be successful in today's business. And the reason why I'm discussing this now is that it's showing how the world is changing. Also, these capabilities that companies need are changing. And the big shift is from something we call resource-based view of a firm to the dynamic view of a firm. So the resource-based view of a firm means that the firm has some assets, they have some know-how, maybe some patents, they have skilled people, machines, and they build their strategy and their competitive advantage on that. It's quite internally looking strategy, and not taking into consideration what's happening with the competitors, what is happening in the world, and what the customers want. This is the little bit older fashioned way of looking into business. But today's business, in order to be innovative, in order to be successful, you have to be outward looking and looking into these dynamic capabilities, building dynamic strategies. And what that means is that considering that what do we want to do? What is happening? What is interesting opportunities? What are the trends? What are the major happenings in the world? How is the stock market developing? And from there on, we decide what business we want to be in. And then we acquire these capabilities. We can hire people, we can train people, we can merge, we can acquire other companies and so forth. But this is a big change, really moving from this, let's say, inward looking view of a firm into this more dynamic looking view. And here are some of these dynamic capabilities. Management of R&D. So how well do we respond to the signals from the market and to feedback from the customers? Product and process development. So we have to have the best tools. We have to have the processes, practices on developing this. Technology transfer, very important. How do we transfer the best knowledge from our customer, from that data, from the R&D to commercial units? Manufacturing excellence. We talk about these factories of future, full automation, autonomous warehouses, all these type of technologies. Intellectual property, obviously then human resources, and very important, organizational learning. It can't be underestimated how important it is to update your knowledge. Try to keep those good, to keep people there and not to be this bleeding knowledge, like we say dramatically. If you have a high retention rate and people are leaving, they take a lot of this tacit knowledge, the important organizational knowledge with them. So we want to keep them. The saying that people are your most important asset is sometimes maybe over exaggerated, but it is very, very important. There's a lot of knowledge that is not documented, that is only in the interrelations between building, the relationship knowledge, and also silent tacit knowledge within the organization. But let's take the second little quiz here on Mentimeter. And there's no wrong answer, so don't take this as a test or something, but let's brainstorm a little bit and say, how would you describe an innovative organization? Or how do you recognize it when you see one? Yeah, some keywords, anything that comes into your mind. Evolving, very good. There's a saying that why small organizations are a lot of times more agile and more innovative than big is because big ship takes longer to turn than a small one. And it's like a dinosaur. If you don't change, you keep doing the same, you become too big and you're not competitive anymore. So innovative organizations can seize opportunities. If they see a market, they grab it. Like we see some organizations move very fast, introduce new products in terms of sanitation or like these travel certificates that people are hesitant to travel now, and tourism industry has really been hit badly. But there are also certificates that you can acquire so that it's a safe travel environment, and then you can still maintain your business. Computerization, yes, usually innovative organizations have very good IT backbone. They have this big data and they can use it. They can adopt IT solutions, yes. There was an interesting discussion I had with one CEO actually last week, and they were talking about this ecosystem-based development. So their products are so complex, they can't do them themselves, not as one organization. But we need to also have a look beyond their organizational borders. We can talk about this borderless organization. And it's really working in collaboration with even your competitors, your suppliers, and your customers. And especially this digitalization was an area where the CEO felt that they are not the best. There are better companies. So why would they waste time trying to learn and never be best anyway. So they rather partner with a smaller or even bigger IT company, and together then they agree on the terms of engagement and then develop these joint offerings. Creative, yes, very good. Growth mindset, culture, very important things. So we're looking into sometimes even this Slack, organizational Slack. And what that means is that we have maybe a little bit too many people rather than too few. So every day I don't just go to work and try to perform my tasks, but I take this entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial mindset, and I am really trying to make my best, save the money of the company and take ownership and try to come up with the better ways of doing what I'm doing. And in innovative organizations, this kind of behavior is rewarded. It is part of the individual incentives and maybe the bonus programs. So in order to get the best performance evaluation, you don't just do your job, but you actually also bring up something new, create something new value for your organization. Engaging, very good. Making life easier, yes. This user experience is a very big thing these days, and we have different methods of having people feel more comfortable, that this company is easy to work with, they're comfortable and they're delivering what they promise. And this is great for customer retention and keeping up higher levels of customer service. Very good. Somebody raised a hand, so please go ahead. Do you want to unmute? Which one was this? Sorry, I don't see. Oh, maybe we take it later. I didn't see the hand up anymore. But yeah, please feel free to comment or give up your views if there's anything that comes into your mind at any time. And let's keep this interactive as much as we can. Okay. What did I do? All right, so this was what we discussed. How do you define innovative organization? And a couple of examples came up already. And why or how are they innovative? And this is something where I would like to stop for a little bit and give a video of an old friend, actually, Joe Pesant. He's one of the leading scholars in innovation research. So a lot of times we don't really think that innovation is actually an area of research, but it has been already for the past 20 years. There's a huge body of knowledge on how to manage innovation. Some other typical topics are motivation for open innovation, rewarding, business model innovation, the process of technology innovation, and so forth, so forth. But let's see what Joe Besant has to do, and then let's continue the discussion on how and why the innovation is really, let's say, a must in this given time.
I'm John Besant, and I'm Professor of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the University of Exeter. What actually does innovation mean, and how can we work with it? And that's what I work on. My field is innovation management, and perhaps I could just share a few thoughts around that with you. Ideas are a great starting point, but on their own, they're not going to create value. So what we need is to understand the process, the journey from moving those ideas to something that creates value. So the first thing is very much about having a clear strategy. So being very clear what it is we're trying to do, what's the value we're trying to create, what's the basis of our innovative idea. Now that might change, but as long as we keep challenging and making sure we're very clear about what we're trying to do, we're going to at least have the beginnings of the roadmap to get there. One of the key lessons we've learned in innovation, particularly in recent years, is the value of what's called the pivot. So you try something out, and very likely it won't work. Maybe the technology doesn't work. Maybe that market that you thought was there isn't there. That's okay. Learn from that and pivot the idea. Don't throw the idea away, but pivot it on its axis towards something that's closer to what will work. So if you want to innovate, it's very much a matter of prototyping, trying things out, probing and learning. Not in a random way, but all the time trying to pivot, trying to focus in on what it is that will really create value for the people you're trying to create it for. The second thing is about networks. I sometimes think it's about what I call knowledge spaghetti. It's technical knowledge and market knowledge, legal knowledge, financial knowledge, all sorts of strands of knowledge held by different people. And our job is to weave those strands together to create value, innovation. And it's one of the big advantages for a small organization, because you don't have to own or know everything as long as you know how to network and make the connections. So connected organizations can be small, but they can also be very effective innovators. But that brings me to the third lesson that we've learned, which is don't be afraid to fail. What we do sometimes is called failing forward. So sounds a simple recipe: strategy, networks, and not being afraid to fail through a managed process of prototyping and learning. Sounds easy enough. The trick, of course, is stepping back and learning and constantly building your own skills in doing it. So I wish you the very best of luck with this course, and I'm sure you started out on a very valuable journey.
Quite nice, right? So he was focusing on three things, focusing on the strategy. And I think this would be a very good starting point for us also when you talk about innovative organizations. So you have to have a direction. We can't try to reach everything, and nobody can be the best in everything. So just like in a strategy process, usually we start with the internal analysis, like your SWOT analysis or similar, to see what are we good at, what are we bad at, what could we do as an organization. Then complement that with external analysis. So looking into the industry, looking into operating environment, your competition, your customers, and see what is really out there. What are the opportunities we could tap on? And make some choices. Usually strategy focuses on maybe about 3 priorities, and that's enough. Maybe then in the next strategy round, after 2 or 3 years, you will have different 3 focus areas. So it could be growth, it could be profitability, it could be product innovation, it could be, let's say, technology acquisition, whatever that might be. Focus on that. And focus also your innovation resources around the same topic. The second was these networks. We can call them ecosystem, partnership, clusters, networks, but really we don't have to do everything ourselves. Already 20 years ago, I think the outsourcing started, and a lot of companies are focusing on their core competencies and let something else, everything else for the partners to do. And this is also one of the key success criteria for this kind of joint offerings. So if you want to do then innovations together with another organization, you have to have something to bring to the table, something where you are superiorly good, and what kind of resources you have to bring to that. That's the key issue. And the third topic was about failing. Sorry, I'm trying to look at the chat at the same time. I'm not very good. So about the failing, so we have to have an exit strategy as well. So sometimes we see it's just not working, and maybe we invested a lot of money on development project, but at some point, if it doesn't yield results, we just have to be able to step down. Innovation usually has the success rate of 10%. So we have those ideas and we have to be able to build on them, but also realize that not all of them will work. So let's remember these 3 things: strategy, networks, and this failing. And failing in a good way, in a learning way. So let's say then about innovation. So how do we implement these innovative organizations? So first of all, innovation is a strategic priority. So it is there, it's mentioned in the strategy and in operational way, not just on the website. We sometimes talk about innovation because every organization is innovative, at least according to their website. But is this reality? Is this something that is really in operational level and in activities also included? That can be another question. Once we talk about the innovation audit, you will have a look into what that actually means. It's seen as a competitive advantage. Yes, this is what we build on. Requirements are clearly defined. So this is important because sometimes we have to also have some time to build up this capacity. So in the beginning, maybe we also reward the attempts. It's not only that we give rewards for those who come up with great innovations, but also those who tried, those who participated in challenges and so forth. Leadership is committed, and very important. The leadership has to be there. They have to walk the talk. Vision is clear. Employees are engaged. They feel innovation is everybody's agenda. And there are these innovation agents and maybe external parties. Yeah, it's interesting when you ask somebody that whose agenda is it to innovate? Who's supposed to innovate in the organization? And you might get results that, oh, the technology management, those technical people, it's not for me, and I'm not very creative type. But in an engaged organization, we would consider that everybody's agenda, because innovation comes in different shapes and forms, as we know. So let's have one look into what are the characteristics of this type of companies before we continue with a little bit of a conversation. So we celebrate attempts. So it's not only for those winners, but we need that mass. In order to get one innovation, we need 100 ideas, or 10 innovation, 100 ideas with this 10% rate. Supportive atmosphere. This is the, let's say, soft ground to fail onto. So you don't feel penalized or that you have taken the organization's time or money if something doesn't work. There has to be this atmosphere that it is okay to fail as well, that it's understandable. Culture is open, so we're sharing. We don't think that knowledge is something that I have to herd with myself, because if I share it, I might lose something. But that's to say, knowledge is something that doesn't get less if you share it. Openness with customers, very important, because once we did studies with big companies, it shows that the most ideas come from the customers. This is the lead user approach or customer-centric innovation approach that we discuss. And if you think about it, if I'm developing healthcare technologies, whom to best ask what they need than a doctor? Or if I'm developing toys or video games, who best to ask but those children who are playing them? And market knowledge, we have to know what is the market situation? What are the entry barriers to the market? Who is the competition? And is this local competition, or is this something that global players could come into and play? So I'm going to now have a look into the Q&A. Let's see, how do I get there? So we have some question. Why is innovation always directly related to business and entrepreneurship? Well, it doesn't have to. And I would maybe say that in the olden days, when we started talking about innovation, it was very much related to new products and new technologies and digital technologies. But these days, more and more, when we talk about innovation, we talk about business. It's quite interesting transformation, actually. Like earlier, when you had innovation courses, they were usually under colleges of engineering or engineering departments. But as you say, now they are under business. So a lot more innovations than value actually come from financial innovations, from business model innovations, and these customer experience innovations. So there's like two views, actually. Somebody said that the biggest innovation of our generation is the 40-foot container. So that is basically the container that is in a ship, and it's in a boat, and it goes in the lorries and so forth. And anybody, why would 40-foot container, such a simple product, be the biggest innovation of our generation? What would you think? Why would this be important? Yes, you can always post Q&As. I was just looking. Yeah. So the 40-foot container idea is important because it's setting a standard and it's enabling this type of interoperability. So now then we can have the same dimensions on doing the work in a marine, in the air, in the railways, and in the roads. Another thing that has been said to be the biggest innovation of our time is secure online payments. And I think we all can relate to this maybe a little bit better than the 40-foot container. But imagine if we didn't have secure electronic trade. We wouldn't have any type of online payments. We wouldn't have online banking. We wouldn't have Amazon. We wouldn't have eBay. So first of all, enabling this kind of trade. And second of all, having those security protocols to make it secure and trusted by all the people. So these are some of the considerations that we could think when you talk about innovation. I'm going to ask you another question here. So this is that what is your organization doing in terms of innovation? So what would you say? Do you have, or do you consider your organization innovative, and how would that be demonstrated? What kind of things? Do you have maybe incentives on innovation? Is it part of the work expectations? Or maybe some challenges, innovation challenges? Cross collaboration between the departments, something like this. Maybe open innovation. Does anybody have anything in mind? Awards and competitions, yeah, very common. That's the same that we do actually even here at the Abu Dhabi University. We had last spring a COVID-19 relief challenge. So we were asking our faculty and students come up with ideas on how can we better interact, how can we take care of our mental and physical well-being, and how we can better deliver our content online. And now then it's an innovation month, as mentioned, here in the UAE. So we have ADU Innovates challenges, and we have categories like how can we make our environment more green, how can we give back to the society, and how can we build on this COVID-19, let's say, opportunity, as we have to see the challenges. Let's see what we have. We have recycling, very good. That's also very educational and creating something sustainable. Competitions, reduction of carbon footprint, yes, similar to the first one. Industry education collaboration, and very welcomed as well. I just read an interesting study with the relation between in-job training and educational opportunities and job performance. And it was amazing how people who actually have chances to do trainings and take maybe some courses and maybe with university, actually their job performance was much better. I think it's related to motivation and feeling rewarded and appreciated by the organization. So we also give back to them. Safe environment, very, very important. One of the basic needs for us, green buildings, awards, and new ideas. Yeah, very good. Yeah, I ask sometimes my students, I'm teaching innovation courses also, and innovation students are those who are really the innovation champions in their organization. And I ask them, why would you not innovate? I'm kind of asking about the second side of the coin. And sometimes very sad stories come up, like the manager stealing their ideas and presenting as their own, or not being awarded, or just being neglected. And maybe then later we see that suddenly similar idea is implemented. So not all the organizations follow through on these competitions and awards as well as they should. So it is really, let's say, end-to-end process. So we have to make sure that if we ask for ideas, also something has to be done. The same idea as with job satisfaction. So I always thought that the worst thing you can say is to ask people for their satisfaction with their work. You get the results, maybe they're bad, then there's no follow-up action. It just triggers the question that why did you ask? And you're not doing anything about it. And next time, maybe I won't answer. This is useless. That doesn't help me with anything. So same with ideas. So we have innovative people and more educated people. They want their company to work, to succeed. And if the company is doing well, the people are doing well. The atmosphere is better and everybody can keep their jobs. So it is in everybody's agenda to really make it better. I can give you an example on this. I worked for Nokia for 10 years. I'm from Finland. And at my time, when I graduated in the 90s, most people would end up working with Nokia. Nokia was growing. It was a market leader at the time. And it was a very fun place to work. It was very international. We were young and we could travel and always something new and exciting coming up. Like every month, some new prototype of phones came and we could test them, and it was full of energy. But then 5 years later, things started going bad, and the atmosphere and the culture of the company completely changed. It shut down. A lot of people lost their jobs. The whole innovation, it just went into the daily struggle of being alive. Before, it wasn't, the company just wasn't alive anymore. But obviously this innovativeness also kind of relates to where the company is and what kind of status they are in, let's say, financially. But yes, if people just can keep on going and keep building those organizations, the better it is for everybody. And also we have to remember that these hard times is really the test for the organization. And if we can go through them, then we'll be better off when things start picking up. Also, in times like this today, right now, the investments are cheaper. You want to acquire new skills or competencies. It is easier, it's cheaper right now. There's more skilled people available, maybe more willing to change jobs. So yes, also in the times of low, if you can build on it, that will build for longer term a sustainable advantage. So a couple of things I think we already covered: employee expectation and broad perspective employees. So again, what are those strategic capabilities as mentioned in the beginning? So we talk about this T-shaped individual or M-shaped individual, even H-shaped individual profiles. And what that means, we used to talk about I-shaped profile. It means that we have very deep knowledge on some domain, maybe in finance, maybe on engineering, maybe on HR management. But now you have to have this deep knowledge on some areas, and then you have to have this broad knowledge on the other areas. This is the T-shape. But even now we say T-shape is not enough. We have to have 2 areas of deep knowledge, like in the M or in the H. Then we have to have this kind of broader business knowledge as well. So even if you work at HR, you have to understand the business in order to be taken seriously, in order to add value for that business. Same with finance, IT, any of these support functions. So that of course has implications to recruitment. So what kind of people we are recruiting. But let's take a couple of further questions. So what are the best practices in making organization innovative? What is the role of recruitment and leadership, and how to make the change? Let's take some background information before we go into a discussion. So what are the makings of an innovative organization? So inspirational tools and creative settings. So just making the innovation easy. The tools like this Mentimeter or this kind of innovation centers, these can be great ways to trigger innovation. Earlier, it was very common to take people out of the office into some kind of retreat or go in a hotel and spend the day there just to get out of the daily environment. And that would trigger new thinking and new ideas. Innovative learning tools. So the tools has to be top notch. They have to work. Nothing is more frustrating than digital tools that don't work. has to be in the performance incentives and the change. Innovation in the end is a change management process as well. So have to think about, so innovation as intervention. So if we see the trajectory that our business is not going the right way, can we use innovation as intervention and turn the business around? Have this innovation urgency. It's like a burning platform that we understand we have to do this. There is no way, otherwise we will not be there in the long run. We have to understand the obstacles, the barriers for innovation. Is it knowledge? Is it institutional? Is it cultural? Is it management related? So we have to then understand it and tackle them. And think about collaboration with teams, bringing in people from different backgrounds, and re-examination of the past projects. So very important, this learning. But let's take another question on this. So we'll see that what is common for these innovative organizations? What do innovative organizations do differently? So what do they do differently? What makes them better? It's just listed a list of things that we should have in the organization. Either we can have them or we can claim that the organization does. But what would be that really that magic ingredients, that X factor that makes some of the organizations more innovative? I have a couple of ideas, but let's see what we come up with. I would relate this conversation a little bit to leadership questions and the culture. So topics like there's this paradigm, we call it the happy employee is productive employee. So if people feel comfortable, they're happy in their workplace, they feel they're treated equally, fairly, the management is appreciating them, they're more likely to come up with ideas than if the culture is very strict and very much micromanagement, somebody is always on your back, and very, let's say, goal oriented or outcome oriented. So in this kind of environment, it is difficult to find the comfort zone, difficult to find the time for innovation. Appreciation, yes, I think this comes to people management. Better ideas, yes, I always like to use the metaphor of organization being like a football team or any sports team, cricket, maybe here. So you can have the best players, but if you can't coordinate them, they're not working together or playing together, then you're not going to be able to come up with great ideas. There's leadership, make it exciting. Yeah, you have like kind of vested interest in this. And we have the teamwork, more openness, appreciation, change. Yes, we need the change. Can't be always the same. Very good. I think somebody raised their hand. You still have the hand up, or I don't see, it seems to disappear. Did somebody want to share their idea? Little hiccups with our tools, but that's fine. Maybe later. All right, so we talk about leadership skills, professional development, very good. So you have to have the best people also, but also the leadership, the coordination, values employees, rewards, appreciation, teamwork, flexibility. And something that I would refer back to what we started with is this being dynamic and being externally driven. I think these would be important factors, like more open, looking into the customer, being also very open to the external environment and having this foresight work where you're always seeing what is coming and following up on the industry trends. So adding value, this is really what we see is the key reason for organizations is to add value for their stakeholders, add value for their customers, to the society, whatever it might be. But let's say then, how do we know where we are? What is our current innovation capacity? So there's a tool called Audit. So maybe you have heard about Audit in terms of maybe a warehouse audit or audit of the HR or the different capability. But also then we can assess the innovativeness through this type of process. So what do we have to do in this innovation step process? So let's have a look down. So first, setting the scene or setting the stage. So we make clear what are the priorities in our organization? What type of things do we want to be? There's a saying that you get what you measure in a company. So if your management said that priorities is innovation, you get it. If they follow through, and that's how you get rewarded. If it's not, you don't get it. So we have to be very clear also when you're doing the audit that we're asking the right questions and we're focusing on those things that are relevant for the organization. We make anonymous survey. I think it's important that it's anonymous. People might not come up with real ideas or real opinions if it's not. The results can be bad. It doesn't matter. It's just important to be honest and transparent in the organization. Then maybe we have detailed interviews with department heads or managers, see how they feel about this. Have executive briefings, get feedback from the management, what do they really want to do? And then make decisions on what will change and start rapid adaptation. We need these quick wins. We can make like long-term plans on we change this and that, but culture takes a long time to change. So we need those like low-hanging fruits and some immediate good feedback and getting this vibe, getting this feeling in the organization that things are going forward. So what kind of questions could we have? This is one example. And this is from the Tit and Pesant's Innovation Management book. And this is the kind of self-analysis tool that rate your organization's innovation performance from 1 to 5 in these following categories. So first, our strategy supports innovation. You can say yeah, never, rarely, sometimes, most times. Let's see, I don't see my own face now. You have always. So this gives you a very nice, like a Likert scale from 1 to 5. Management encourages innovation. We have innovative leadership practices. There are no barriers for innovation. Employees' ideas are rewarded. Our culture is innovative. These are quite high-level questions, and it could be, especially for management, very tempting to put there always, 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 everything's perfect. But that's not very productive. It's not taking the organization anywhere. So we would need to have this anonymous data from as many people in the organization as we can and have this kind of rating. Obviously, we would also need some open-ended questions that explain a little bit more. Or then we go with the step 3 with those interviews. But what comes out of this type of innovation audit is this kind of spider diagram. So you can ask your questions in different categories. Like in this innovation audit reporting, we have selected 4 areas that are important for this organization in order to be innovative. So they have to have the leadership and talent. And then they ask a couple of questions related to this, related to management metrics, culture values, relentless leadership. We talk about customer centricity, how flexible the organization is. Are we good at product or service innovation or consumer experience? Are we collecting the consumer insights? So these are important for this company. Being customer-centered, having the right leadership and talent. Also then information advantage. do we have this IT, an application of IT that was mentioned, that we shared also here as one of the makings of innovative organizations? Or we talk about execution excellence. So are we good at bringing our ideas to the market? Can we scale them? Can we replicate the ideas? Can we reach different new audiences with modification of these products and so forth? And with this kind of innovation audit, it gives you this kind of profile. This is called spider diagram. So it's like a spider web. And you say here, let's take this industry A. So they seem to be quite okay. They are doing stronger here in information advantage side. But we can see with culture and values, efficient scale and reach, there are huge gaps. Also maybe on the product, service, innovation, consumer experience. And why this kind of audit is important? Because it is really pointing out those areas that you have to develop. And maybe after this kind of audit, we make a new strategy for the company, or we update some part of the strategy and increase more focus on this product innovation, on the consumer experience and so forth. So overall, it's kind of showing that this company, maybe it's a very technology driven, because the consumer experience and this scaling is really their weaknesses. Let's could take another one, maybe this blue organization, and you can see what is there. We have the culture, values are quite high, rapid idea to market, efficient scale and reach, product and service innovations, these are strong. Maybe consumer insights are lower, and process excellence and so forth. Draws a very different picture. What you can also use is this kind of ready-made scales. There are different scales in different industries that have been done by the consulting companies like Gartner or McKinsey, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And there they could have this one, like here we have the blue one. This could be the industry benchmark. So how is the best company or best 5 companies in your industry doing? And what is important for the customer? So if the customer doesn't really care about product innovation, so why would we bother with that? We just deliver them the same that they always had. And this could be case, for example, in mature business to business environment. So just go with the same old and you'll be just fine. But yes, either you can compare yourself with the industry benchmark, just do your own analysis, or then compare yourself to the perceived customer value. So what the customer wants and how do I deliver on intentions. Has any of you used, does it look familiar to you? I put it in the work cloud again. Have you used innovation audit? It can be quite simple tool. You can make it complicated as well, but I think it would be good to keep it simple, keep it relevant, not to have too many different dimensions. But it is quite a nice tool. It's a bit like a SWOT analysis or similar, where you're looking into your strengths and weaknesses, but it's very visual and it's focused on the innovation specifically. Yeah, we also at the Abu Dhabi University, we did some innovation mappings, and we have different areas like working better together. That's one of our strategic priorities. So kind of finding the synergies and not to reinvent the wheel again with the different departments. And that's something we're working on. So kind of cross-industry collaboration was something that wasn't maybe the strongest. It's also quite clear for places like universities that this benchmark comes from these international accreditations. So Abu Dhabi University is very focused on quality, and we have this AACSB American accreditations and European accreditations. And in order to achieve those accreditations, the processes in the organization has to be in place. And that is kind of driving us to continue to develop those processes. Yeah, it is kind of like a survey. We don't have to call it innovation audit. I think the labels are not so important, but yeah, if somebody has used similar type of surveys and asking what people think, it's basically doing the same idea. And this spider diagram is a very nice visual presentation of the results. So you also seeing that. Yes, and somebody had already used. Very good. Yeah, it gives you a good idea where you are, and you can compare yourself then to the best in class or maybe to the industry benchmarks. Then we're talking about this kind of X factor and how to put all these things together. And I think this comes to the innovative leadership. And this is not the easiest area, since even we have a lot of managers who are good managers, but they might feel a little bit out of their comfort zone when they have to show leadership and innovative leadership. It's similar with teaching. We were running future schools workshops this winter, and we were talking with teachers and teaching innovation. And a lot of teachers felt that this is something new. I don't feel comfortable. I don't know how to teach innovation. So how could I ever succeed in that? Same with the leadership. If the leaders don't feel that they really know about innovation management, yeah, it would be very hard to be an innovative leader. So we need some kind of cross-organizational, let's say, skills development and getting people more comfortable with this idea of innovation and showing innovation leadership. And what is then the innovative leadership? So first one is freedom, trust. So we trust that these people come up with these ideas. We trust that they take their work seriously and they want to have a career. They don't just come to work for the money. You might remember from some studies this theory of manager X and manager Y. And the manager X thinks that his employees or his team just comes there because they have to, and they leave at 5 when the job is done and just want to get paid. Whereas manager Y thinks that people want to develop themselves, they want to seize new opportunities, and they want to do their best in work every day. And obviously, the approach that the manager takes into their team, into the individuals there, has huge impact on how people feel and how innovative they would be. So freedom is important. This is the classical organization innovation example of Apple that gives the employees 20% of the time to do whatever they like, just because with that, they can come up with more innovative ideas. And they trust that they will spend that time on something work related. Challenging work, also the bar has to be high. We have to have a certain level of ambition. If it's too easy, we don't push ourselves too hard and we can become stagnant. So it's very important to set those bars and the targets higher, and also focus on this, what we call ambidexterity. How much of the time people spend on the current business and how much on developing for the future. It depends on the organization, and again, that can be benchmarked by the industry leaders. Teamwork and collaboration, very important. And let's see also from you. So what do you think? I will then look into the questions. So what kind of leadership? What is required from leaders? Why Nokia failed? Oh my God, Dazil asked the question. Yeah, I was actually involved in a book project with some professor from INSEAD, and there's a lot of books on this, but I would say lack of innovation. Yeah, focus on wrong things. So Nokia was market leader and focused on the technical excellence and also optimizing their supply chains. And they didn't take, for example, Apple seriously because the quality of the product in the beginning was so bad. So they didn't think that people like that. I think it's ignorance, maybe being a little bit arrogant. They felt that we have the good product and we can always win. But they, for example, didn't have the touch screens and everything. They didn't go with the customer experience and preferences. So definitely, I think the lack of innovation, lack of looking into the external signals, being more internally driven. I think these are definitely some of the questions. And another thing was the standards. So they couldn't decide whether they go with iOS or Android, and they're developing their own operating platform called Migo, and that nobody got excited. It wasn't very good, and they couldn't get others on board. Did the Mentimeter stop working? Really? Let's try. I put it in the presentation mode. Maybe now it works again. I was checking into the Q&A, so I stepped out of this. Okay, let's try again. Does Mentimeter work? But I think actually, looking back into this, I think Nokia was really doing all these things wrong. Being internally driven, not giving enough focus on the customers, maybe not motivating people in the end for innovation. Once things started sliding, going bad, yeah, it was not going better. So leaders, motivation, very good. Communication skills, yes, to communicate things in the right way. I mean, like challenge, it's also quite individual. So some people strive on challenges, but for some it might feel overwhelming and tiring, and that will kill even the last intensive. So understanding and kind of situational leadership, I guess, understanding where people are. Rewards always help, and whether it's monetary or whether it could be like more holidays or some kind of recognition. Also, I found a very interesting research result some time ago about how to motivate people. And it was like not always giving people more. And it's not even always possible. We can't always keep giving people more money or salary increase or something. But it could be also removing some obstacles or frustrations, like a lot of processes or something that seems unrelated to the work, and simplifying tasks. So maybe not to give people more, but remove those things people don't like. Openness, empathy maps, very good, looking into understanding the user profiles, customer profiles, employee profiles. Listening, yes, so it has to be two-way communication. Patience, very good. Clear strategy, I think, would be good also. So everybody really knows what they're doing and how their work relates to the strategy. And positivity, yes, very important. So positive environment is also conducive for new ideas. So let's talk about these barriers then a little bit. So innovation usually entails a change. You will change some things and introduce something new. So there is this culture of blame if you're looking into the picture on the right. So if things fail, we go first into looking at whose fault was it. That definitely stopping of the innovation on the tracks. Motivation then again would be something that will be having either negative or positive influence on the innovation. Unapproachable management is a negative impact on innovation. We talk sometimes of this non-management, or management spending too much time managing upwards towards their own bosses and maybe neglecting what's happening in the organization. Management systems are also important. Usually we talk about a lot of ideas, and there has to be a way to categorize these ideas, how to transparently assess them, and also give reasons why some ideas were selected and some not. Inexperience, this is something that studies has shown that we still have big gaps in our knowledge in technological innovations. So we should better in companies understand what we can do with these virtual tools and what is out there. So this kind of digital innovation gap is one big hurdle for innovation as well. Capital, we need some money, so also dedicated resources for innovation. Even I said it's on everybody's agenda, everybody should do something related to that, but also we have to have those dedicated people whose job it is to manage this kind of and coordinate these kind of things. Local regulation and taxes, they can be good for the innovation or negative. And I would give an example that really worked here in the UAE. Like the city of Abu Dhabi is having these procurement rules that there has to be some content of renewable energy or recycled materials in the buildings. So whenever they're buying, let's say they're buying a new bridge, there has to be sustainable solutions. And this is, of course, then triggering innovations in this field and getting people to work harder on coming up with something new and not just implementing and presenting the same old. But I think one thing that I'd like to also put here is this resistance to change, lack of management, lack of structures, and this unsuitable idea. So maybe you have ideas, but they are not really right for this organization. And as you mentioned, we have to have the strategy, we have to have the direction. Otherwise, we might be losing resources, we'll be wasting time and money. So last thing, but not least, so innovative new business opportunities, and let's talk a little bit about the design thinking process before we move on to a discussion. So design thinking is a process that it originated from Stanford and from the Silicon Valley, and it's really taken the UAE in the past couple of years by storm. So we're teaching a lot of courses on design thinking. But it is a way that how could we better innovate and how could we better solve our customers. So we talk about solution-focused thinking, starting with the goal instead of solving a specific problem. And I give an example of this. This could be, for example, the city procurement. Let's take that again. So the process for those who are not involved in this is usually that the city wants to, or the municipality wants to buy something. So they put this request for proposals where they define the technical specification of what do we want to buy. And after that, then different companies send them proposals and they select the winner and start the project. But in this kind of solution-focused thinking, the procurement could send a challenge like help us reduce energy consumption in public building by 30%. They don't make any kind of technical specification. You can come up with any kind of solution as long as it is bringing the solution. It is reducing the energy consumption by 30%. And with this, the design thinking is different from typical product development, that we spend more time, what we call in this empathy and insights, in this problem domain before we jump into the solutions. Another example I use a lot is that there's always a traffic jam between Dubai and Sharjah. Should we solve that by putting more lanes on the highway? And I think we all agree that no, that's not sustainable and it's not taking our. Should we put cars in the 2 levels? And they said no. We have to find alternative solutions like public transportation or starting government offices at a different time. So not everybody's there at 8 o'clock in the morning, or schools in a different time. So we have to find kind of lateral solutions to that. But after that stage, it pretty much comes into this concept development, solution development, like a typical product development process. But it has these same elements that Pesant was also mentioning about this prototyping, trying alternatives and failing, learning from that and doing it all again. So this is maybe something different in design thinking. Also thinking about innovation paradigm as these different dimensions. So there was a comment that is innovation only about business, but no, it can be about process. Very good process innovations now, for example, in logistics and other areas. So how can we do better? It could be employer onboarding process, travel claim, big or small things, but just incrementally or radically changing these processes. It could be positioning, like maybe we are offering our products for different categories. If we used to sell only grown-ups, why wouldn't we also take older people or children? Or product, we could widen our product portfolio, or paradigm. So we're moving on to a completely new business. And this is something that a post-COVID era might be where we go to. All right, so this is something. But let's leave it at this. This could be the last thing for today. I know it's been a long sitting. So what works? We have to also be able to evaluate, and like I said, transparently, what are these good ideas in this, and what works in our organization and what not. So we should have different ideas in these different categories. And this is what we call risk and reward innovation portfolio. So some of them are high risk, high returns, low risk, low return. We might not be so interested in this. Also then, what is the profit probability for success? So how feasible they are, and are they really going to be implemented? Or let's say not, like maybe they're too far into the future and the technology doesn't support them yet. And this can be thought in terms of product innovations, but also like organizational processes and innovations. So thinking about this organizational setting, all have the ideas on what would make the organization more innovative, and then to see what works for us. Would this work? Would our management ever buy into this kind of thing or not? And also then what would be the impact? Would this really make any change? Because again, we don't want to go shuffling and shaking the organization and changing the structures and things if we don't see the immediate rewards and business benefits from it. All right, so these were the key things that I had in mind for today. Let's see if we had some questions. I'm looking into the questions and answers, or anything from the chat. So what kind of thinking did it trigger at the conversation today? Less cars, yeah, it can function, yes. Yes, and there was a question about the empathy map. It is similar. Empathy map is one tool in the design thinking process that can be used. So very good observation. Recycling cans and making environment safe. Yes. Yes, I lived in Germany actually a long time ago, and it was crazy. First time I just put all my trash in a trash bin and go out and try to bring it somewhere, and there was no place. You have to sort out everything, and this was already in the 90s. Already in the 90s, everything has to be paper, organic, plastic, cans. So I had to go back in and sort my trash before I could put it anyway. Yeah, and there are rewards. Again, we get the kind of behavior that we're rewarding. So if recycling is rewarded, even in my country, if you bring plastic bottles back or cans, you get some money. It's like 20 cents, I think you get. That's like 80 fills for a can of Coke if you bring that to a shop in the recycling machine. But yeah, this is definitely the things. And here is my information. I think I had it. No, I didn't. I didn't have my information. But I'm sure that this presentation will be shared with you. And if there's any questions or later you want to discuss with me, I can share here in the chat my information. And yeah, so we are also working on this within our own organization. So let's say we have the theoretical knowledge of what is innovative, and that it doesn't mean that we are always the best. in doing it. So we're also trying to develop our organization. And right now we have a lot of digital tools. I would say that has been really good, and getting our 7,000 students also to participate. If it's made easy, you provide a link. Link takes you to some nice looking, easy to use site or platform to submit your ideas. Definitely easier than starting to write long emails or fill in some forms with too many questions. So we don't want to exhaust them. So the barrier has to be very low. Later on, then we can develop those ideas further and ask more details. But just to get the things going and develop this culture, you have to make it easy for the employees and participants. Very good. So there is now then the recording and the presentation. Robert was sharing the link at our community website at ADU. Right now, I would like to take some questions. I think there was something. Why innovation fail? Although companies have fully trained employees, defined protocols and systems in place, is it the good concept adaptation failure, just to keep the subject on the tabletop only? Yeah, very good. I would say sometimes companies make wrong assumptions, and I think it comes down to this strategy and external focus. So sometimes let's say the assumption is that this is what we always sold and this is what our customer wants, without maybe doing the proper market research. And obviously innovation is also path dependent. So in a company, maybe you have some manufacturing capacity and equipment. And if you start innovating your products very differently, then also you have to change a lot of things internally. And the company might not be willing to do that. So the biggest reasons why innovation fail is usually two things. First one is no customer needs. So it's amazing. Also, if you go to Google and check, why do startups fail? What are the main reasons for startup fail? It is that the customer don't want the product. So more research on the customer benefits is needed. And really, sometimes we think that if we make this killer product, customers will buy it. But not always. Maybe it's too expensive, or let's say the switching cost from the existing tool to this new tool or product might be too big. So there can be a lot of changes. And another thing is then this one-off innovations. The company comes up with a great innovation, but it fails to continue with the second version and the good support for this kind of products. But there is no one reason, but one thing is that neglecting really the engagement with the external community, stakeholders, and the customers. The second reason why companies fail is cash flow. They run out of cash. So maybe they invested too much and maybe it takes too long before they start making returns. So they have to start reducing features. Maybe the engineers made a great idea of what kind of values they will give for the customers. But then when you got to the commercialization and production, you have to take a lot of features out because the cost reasons or so forth, all the time limitations. How can we be more innovative? That's a good question. If we think about that on individual level, I would say the practice makes perfect. So just thinking of innovation. I have this one exercise in my class that I use sometimes in creativity class, that give me 50 ways of using a common product, like glasses. Give me 50 ways to use them. Like, I could cook with them, I could do gardening, I could do handicrafts and decorations. Yeah, I could look also through them, but you could think about like a lot of different ways of using it. So 50 ways. And I have students or even the faculties who work with this type of ideas and they ideate frequently. They can come up with 30 or 40 things like this. Maybe then the last 10 might take some time. But then we have people who don't really think in these terms, don't really challenge their thinking so frequently. They might come up with 3 ideas and then they said, oh, I can't think. What else could it be? So really kind of looking really out there and thinking what is possible and what is not. There's also this what we call innovation mindset. So whenever you're looking around you, think that how could this be done better? So we don't always talk about these radical new innovations, but incremental improvements to how things are. Like think about home shopping, like ordering groceries online. Now a lot of us do it because it's quite easy to do it, and the delivery options are better these days. And it's just the apps are better and the process works better because there's more practice on this. So always think about this. So you go to the airport, and it's frustrating sometimes to travel. So think, how could we do this better? When you go to your COVID test, think, how could we organize this better? So I wouldn't say it's critical mindset, but it's questioning. It's not like being a super negative and thinking everything's bad around me, but thinking, how could we do this better? There's an example that I spend with my students, always comparing about Starbucks. We have Starbucks on campus that it takes too long and it's too expensive. So I said, while you were there waiting for your coffee, could you think, how could Starbucks do this process better? How could they entertain me while I'm here? How could they maybe upsell me with something else while I have to stand here for 5 minutes? So thinking about this customer journey and what are my moments when I can be in contact with this customer and how could I leverage on them? So this is a type of mindset that might be useful. Can we challenge ourselves to create our creativity? Yes, there is a lot of this, like a psychoanalytic profiles online. One is called the Big Five. Then we have RIASEC test. These are two tests. Also Myers-Briggs profiling is one thing we could do. And it is showing different creativity types. Just like learning types, we learn different ways. We're also creative in different ways. Like some people can see patterns, some people are good mathematically or kinetically or musically. So maybe if you know and understand more about your process and you know what is your creativity type, then you can develop yourself in that direction. There's a lot of ways then we can keep like a journal and see how my thinking is developing over time. Because trying, maybe participating in these challenges, being exposed to it, reading, seeing what's out there. And there's something called sampling experiences. So this is like putting yourself into new situations where you maybe interact with different types of people and maybe draw some ideas from there. We say innovations, ideas, they come always in interaction with different people. So all kind of cross-departmental things, maybe dealing with different demographic groups of people, children, that's where the ideas can come from. We're a little bit shy, we don't have this creative confidence. There is this saying that a researcher goes to the grade 1 at school and say like, oh, you have a lot of drawings here. Do we have artists here in class? And everybody would raise their hand. Yes, I'm an artist. Then they go to high school, 12th grade, say, oh, we have drawings. Do we have artists in class? And you could be 100% sure nobody will raise their hands. It is the fear of failure. It is the fear of being judged that a lot of times limit us. So if we can practice that in safe environment, maybe within the family or organization, something like this, it will boost our confidence. And once you start doing it, you get better. It's called something called guided mastery. And it is a skill that can be learned through self-analysis, through practice, through conversations with other people, and maybe keeping journals and doing these analytical testings. All right, I think I will be more or less done for today then. I will thank you for your attention. And please keep your mind open for the upcoming seminars. ADU is quite frequently organizing them, I think almost on weekly or bi-weekly basis. And check out the different courses and certificates we have. There's a lot coming up in our future school and future of work development series as well. All right, so that's it for today then. Thank you very much. And please don't hesitate to be in touch. You have the presentations and you have my contact information. Sorry, I didn't react to all the different. And Elon Musk, very good examples there, and Starbucks. Yeah, Starbucks always coming up with new coffees, new decor. It doesn't have to do with your core product. It can be something completely different where the innovation and added value comes. All right, thank you for sharing. I think it was very nice interaction, and the Mentimeter word clouds are very, very nicely popping out. So don't forget that also as a tool. It's free to sign up with limited features. You can use it also in your own work. Thank you very much, and have a good day today. And yeah, see you at the next workshop. Thanks.